the mountainous rainforests of British Columbia. Cold, rugged, and one of the Earth's last great wildernesses. Despite having one of the most dramatically changeable climates in the world, the forests here by their size support 4 times as much life as the tropical rainforests of the equator. And for the animals and plants that have adapted to call this ecosystem home, it is a land of great opportunity. Whilst here, I'm hoping to photograph the best that this amazing place has to offer and learn more about the adaptations that allow them to call this place home.
I've been in Canada now for the last several months, and I have had any number of amazing wildlife experiences. But there is one animal I've hoped to see more than any other, an animal that can not only thrive in this hostile and forever changing environment, but actually shape it. Tonight I'm hoping to see the North American beaver.
This lake is home to a family of North American beavers. Every night they venture out from their lodge looking for food. The waters of this lake mean relative safety for beavers. Away from the large predators that roam the forest, they can go about their business in relative peace. The relative safety of the water is important to beavers. Most Canadian wildlife is terrestrial in nature, and by being uniquely adapted to this habitat, beavers can gain several advantages over their natural predators.
Beavers are not built for speed on land. Their heavy frames are much too cumbersome, and their large tails drag behind them like a lead weight. But in the water, they undergo a transformation.
When in water, beavers use their short, webbed, paddle-like feet to propel themselves forward, and their large tails to steer like a rudder. This allows them to swim with surprising speed and agility for their size, and if they do sense danger, they can quickly slip away with a slap of their tails. But it's not just how beavers navigate moving through their environment that is key to their success. Even more important is how they cope with the weather.
It is very cold right now. If I was to take off my coat, I would probably enter a hypothermic state within minutes. And if I was to jump in this water, it would take me even less. But beavers need to be able to survive in these conditions for hours. And for that, they need a very special coat.
Beaver fur was once one of the most valuable commodities of the Western world. It largely drove the colonial expansion of the British and French empires in Canada and the subsequent Beaver Wars.
In fact, it was once so valuable that possessing a beaverskin coat or pair of gloves was considered the height of fashion. Now, like many semi-aquatic mammals, beaver fur is made up of 2 distinct layers. An outer layer of guard hairs that were impermeable to water, much like your waterproof coat, and then a second layer of underfur, which provides the insulation, much like a jumper.
And it was this incredible density of the underfur that made it so valuable. With more than 10,000 hairs per square centimetre, beavers have some of the most effective fur coats in the animal kingdom. So beavers are obviously supremely adapted to their environment. But how do they maintain enough energy to survive? You see, beavers are herbivores and rely on herbaceous plants during the summer months, such as water lilies, for food. But during the winter months, it's too dark and cold for much plant growth to occur, so they have to switch up their diet. Well, the answer might be in trees.
We talk about beavers eating trees, that's not entirely true. They're not interested in the outer layers of bark or the thick wood just inside. They're actually interested in what's in the centre, in the softer cellulose-rich layers. Now, cellulose is actually a really interesting carbohydrate. It makes up over 50% of all known carbohydrates on the planet, and it is chemically very similar to both starch and glycogen, which are key staples of the diet of many animals. But unlike both glycogen and starch, no animal on the planet is able to break cellulose down into its base ingredients and release the energy trapped inside. So beavers have had to come up with an ingenious way to get around this. What they've done is fill their guts with bacteria that can break down that cellulose. And then, once this cellulose is broken down by the bacteria, beavers can then release the energy stored.
This novel adaptation to digesting cellulose was a game changer for beavers. It allowed them to survive throughout the winter without the need to hibernate like most Canadian mammals, and by storing branches and sticks underwater in so-called beaver caches, beavers could have a sustainable and safe food source even when their legs froze over. But there is one slight problem with trees. They don't usually grow in the water, and any beaver attempting to gnaw one down risks exposing itself to predation. To overcome this, beavers have once again devised an ingenious solution. If the trees won't come to the water, maybe the water can come to them, with dams.
Now this sturdy structure is a beaver dam. By blocking the flow of water downstream, it causes the river further upstream to flood its banks. And when it floods its banks, it creates vast expanses of wetland habitat. Now these wetlands created by the beaver dams are actually incredibly important habitats for local wildlife. Not only do they provide cover in the shallow streams and pools for beavers whilst feeding on roots and shoots, they also provide excellent nesting sites for many rare species of shorebird.
These wetlands are not just magnets for animals, however. They also play a perhaps even more ecologically important role against forest fires.
During the summer, with rising temperatures and lowered rainfall, the forests of British Columbia can become virtual tinderboxes.
A single spark could cause disaster, igniting a forest fire that engulfs the entire valley, threatening not only numerous fragile habitats, but also many small towns and livelihoods. But the water stored within the wetlands could provide a protection against such threats, acting as natural forest fire barriers. In fact, it has been suggested that beavers can make an area 3 times less likely to suffer from a significant fire than areas without beavers. But, whilst beaver dams are undoubtedly mostly beneficial, they certainly can have their issues.
Behind me are the remnants of what less than 2 nights ago was a beaver dam, perfectly positioned to block the main outflow of water from the beaver lake. Now, this would have had 2 major unintended side effects. Firstly, this would have caused the water to begin to stagnate and an accumulation of bacterial toxins in the water to build up, which would have made it toxic to swim in. And secondly, it would have blocked the main migration route of salmon moving upstream to breed. Now, neither of these 2 unintended consequences would exactly make beavers flavour of the month with the local council authorities. And given the option of either continuously removing these dams or removing the beavers, well, there can only be one economic option. Fortunately for the beavers of this lake, a local volunteer has stepped in to do the council's work for them, removing wood from the dams when they block major outflows from the lake. As you can see behind me, it is a tireless task.
Beavers are natural-born dam builders and are absolutely fixated on building them. In one experiment, beavers were left in an enclosure and running water noises were played on a speaker overhead. By the morning, a dam had been built. It's no surprise, therefore, that the beavers of this lake often take to repairing their dams, even before they can be fully taken apart.
Now, I couldn't go into all of the details of this one amazing volunteers arms race with the local beavers, but it is a fantastic story and one I'm sure I will cover in another video. But needless to say, the work of this one volunteer allows us to live side by side with this amazing mammal here in Pemberton. Okay, it is day 8 of a beaver watch, and yeah, it's warmed up a lot over the last couple of days. We've seen the ice thaw quite a lot around the lake, and I've just spotted quite a lot of new beaver activity, so they're still active, and hopefully today's the day. Wish me luck.